Hello and welcome back to the Red Path. Today we're going to look at a list style I've been working on for the World Eaters. As many of you know, I enjoy playing all types of 40k, fluffy games that weave a story over a campaign, friendly games that are more about the social side of things, and hardcore competitive games where it's a battle of wits. And today I'm going to focus on the last one, and throw some ideas out there about a style of list we can use to help increase the effectiveness of our bloody savages. Before I get into that, I need to remember to go over the admin, which I tend to always forget. First off, thanks for being here and checking this video. If you're not a subscriber, I'd appreciate you hitting that button if you enjoy the content. If it isn't for you, please let me know in the comments why so I can know what to do to produce better content. Next, I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Deanie G, who runs Berserk Painting on Instagram. Dean and I were chatting the other night and I'd like you all to help congratulate him in the birth of his son at the end of last year. I'll have some images on the screen right now of his work, but please go check out his Insta if you get a chance. There's some truly phenomenal work on there. Finally, check out the links in the description. You can follow the channel on Facebook, join the Discord server for growls and lols, and be part of the World Eaters Legion Facebook group where all of this started. Okay, on to some actual content. World Eaters have traditionally been pretty much a meme army. You max out combat units, throw them forwards, and hope to win the war of combat attrition. In a balanced match, it tends to have around a 50-50 success rate, which is fine for friendly games, but when you're trying to play competitively, you really need to take a different route. Now, there are various ways to build World Eaters effectively. A user in our Discord was just talking about mulching a Drukhari list with an MSU style infantry heavy army. And we've seen what some other variations can do on BatRep channels like Hellstorm Wargaming, Tabletop Tactics and SN. Mark Perry of the Art of War 40k just used a Zerka Raptor heavy list competitively, which is interesting to watch. Since mid-8th edition, I've been trying to formulate a balanced take-all-comers World Eaters army, and every now and then I find a decent list. Then, a significant rules change happens or a global pandemic hits, and that version becomes obsolete. But either way, I'm going to share my current list in a moment and discuss the moving parts. Beforehand though, let me describe the design philosophy. It's called the Blood Tide because it's supposed to simulate the relentless, repeating crashing of waves, which lends to the strategy it's designed to employ. World Eaters are currently equipped to function as a counter-offensive army, fluff be damned, and they do really well at it. We can and do field multiple Berserker squads, and any one of them is a threat to any other unit on the battlefield, with some relatively cheap buffs. This, combined with their fragile nature, means they need to be protected and then thrown into the fray to tip the scales. Trading a 90-point Zerker squad for a 200-point enemy squad is normally a very worthwhile exchange. But a counter-offensive can be risky. If we are lacking supporting firepower or an alpha strike threat, any opponent will not take the bait, and they'll find ways to eliminate our threats without them drawing blood. So to mitigate this, I decided we need to pose continual threats across the entire battlefield, and to keep the opponent on the back foot. The strategy works on using the mechanics of 9th edition, the need to score primary points from turn 2 onwards. As we know this, we know that both players will vie for control over central objectives in turn 2 or 3 and onwards. We have to play to this and ensure our list and strategy is geared towards it. On the screen will be a work in progress version of my list. I'd say it's about 90% complete at this point. You should be able to see how the moving parts work, but feel free to ask in the comments if you're wondering why something is or isn't there. So here's how it works. Now this is assuming we get first turn. Phase 1 is the Alpha Strike. You move fast units straight toward the opponent. Helldrakes, Raptors with Apoplectic Frenzy, etc. Use any shooting as necessary and then charge to tie up important units. These units are 100% expendable. It's about 20% of your points, but the intention is to ensure your opponent's first turn is under your control. Helldrakes can be used to move block or tag alpha shooting units. Raptors can hide on an objective to lure forces away from the centre field. Then, my personal seasoning, a Dreadclaw with 5 red butchers inside. Sounds wasteful and redundant, right? Yeah, it does. But it's not, and here's why. The Dreadclaw can drop turn 1, but you can't disembark from it turn 1. Terminators by themselves can drop turn 2, if they're starting in reserves, but they can't move. If you put them in the claw and land the claw near a ruin or a decent piece of terrain, if and when it is destroyed, You deploy the Terminators safely into cover or behind a line of sight blocking piece of terrain, and then in turn 2 they can move, they can shoot and charge, and they're already close to enemy lines. Just beware that currently it's very difficult to disembark from the Dreadclaw. I would clarify with an opponent or the TO beforehand to allow you to do one of the following. 1. Disembark from the base. Rules as written you can't, but it's obviously broken. Or 2. Use the model without a base and flight stand. In a friendly game this will be fine, but if you're playing in an ITC event you'll want to clarify because technically it's a basing requirement. Okay, so phase 1 has us use 3 or 4 units to engage them in their lines and hopefully block them from pushing out early in the game. Meanwhile, buses of berserkers will be moving to the midfield, positioning so the Zerks can disembark into relative safety if necessary. This is a preparatory step. Phase 2, bombardment. My go-to shooting for the World Eaters is the triple Predator assault. I've talked about this several times, no surprise. Coming in from reserve, my 3 Predators slide in, calm between them for rerolls and put out a barrage of shots, 4 damage autocannons, 3 damage heavy bolters, 2 damage havoc launchers, combi bolters, and begin to chew through mid-size units, whatever suffers most against -1 AP. At this stage I will also have disembarked or moved my Terminators, who will then begin assaulting enemy lines with whatever CP is needed to boost them to God tier. By now I should have Cultists and empty Rhinos holding down objectives and working on secondaries to start pushing ahead points wise. Whilst the plan as described is working, I will be scoring engage on all fronts with relative ease, deploy scramblers will be building up for an easy 10 VP, and whatever killy secondary I chose should be racking up too. Phase 3, decapitation. It's likely that the opponent has disengaged from my initial assault. The Helldrakes, Raptors and Terminators are all likely skulls in the dirt right now. But because of the likely points deficit, they will have no choice but to push forward into the centre to attempt to hold objectives. This will mean they have to waste shots and attacks against Rhinos and Cultists to secure them, and likely not have the means to pinpoint my Berserkers, who are waiting for just this moment. Once the third phase begins, they move and charge from their cover to assault the objectives. If the target can be readily killed and it's profitable to do so, they will be. If strategy demands it, the Zerkers will instead contest the objectives to prevent a swing. Whatever is needed from them, they will provide, and it should be more than enough when supported by the remains of the army to ensure the points sit favourably for the Blood God. So the strategy relies on going first. The list, however, can go second. It does give up the Drakes too early, unfortunately, but the Predators, Terminators and Dreadclaw will all be safe in reserve, and if the enemy pushes to the centre early, there are significant options for a turn 1 charge with Berserkers. It's a harder win going second, but the list can work. The biggest issue is the need to frontline the Drakes, who will be vulnerable. Frenzying the Raptors and perhaps a Lord is acceptable, as they can still move into cover or into hiding. The engine of this style of list is the momentum needed to continually disabuse your opponent of breathing room. A few years ago I was attempting to write a submission to the Black Library, and within it was a character reading a military primer. The quote I invented for it goes as follows: "The essence of attack is to concentrate all momentum against one point. The essence of defense is to choose where and when that point will be. The essence of victory is to have the greater celerity, the greater ferocity, and the greater will. Decide in a moment, pursue your decision with all power, and never, ever surrender." I think this sums it up fairly well. To attack successfully, you must find a part of your opponent's force to break. In 40k terms, this means preventing their capacity to score. To achieve victory, you must be fast, aggressive, and relentless. The style of list I'm advocating as useful for World Eaters embodies these traits. It's a gamble for sure, but we are not a force equipped to sit back and wait for the enemy. To fully utilise our strengths, we must push the enemy to the back foot and continually hammer blows against them until either their skull is claimed or our blade is broken. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments if you think this style of list can work. The strategy doesn't require the units I've chosen, but it does require units that can do the same or similar things. Things like Alpha Strike, things that can provide volume of fire, and things that can counter assault, preferably with OBSEC. If you can find these things, you can build a tide list. Okay folks, that's the end of this one. I hope you've enjoyed it and maybe learned a little something. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and come check out the Discord. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.